And at 10, Ian Rogers. When Steve Rogers got trapped in Dimension Z, he rescued a baby boy while he was trapped there. Since time moves faster in that dimension though, he ended up raising the boy for over 10 years. Sharon Carter ended up raising him for the remainder of his childhood when she was also trapped in Dimension Z after going there to rescue Steve. The boy was the son of Armin Zola, but he saw Steve Rogers and Sharon Carter as his parents. His birth name was Leopold Zola, but he goes by Ian Rogers now, the name that his true father gave him. By the time he left Dimension Z, Ian was a full-grown adult. He then took on the name Nomad and partnered with Sam Wilson. And at 9, Francis Barton. On Earth 555326, also known as the Next Avengers Heroes of Tomorrow universe, Francis Barton was Clint Barton's son, who raised him to be a hero and helped the rebels known as the Scavengers, and Francis led them around Machine City after his father's death. When the children of the other deceased Avengers, James Rogers, Torrin, Hank Pym Jr., and Osri, arrived, he saved them from Ultron's forces, and James and his siblings followed Francis and the Scavengers to their home base. He told them that he was the surviving son of the original Hawkeye. Then Francis became infuriated when he realized that he wasn't the last Avenger, and angrily wondered the whereabouts of the others during his time of desperate survival. James reasoned that they didn't know of his existence, much like their fathers did, and James, the son of Captain America, and Francis often argued. At first he seemed cold and indifferent to his new friends, but as time passed, he showed himself to be just as much of a jokester and a flirt as Clint ever was. Which is kinda weird because they're kids. And at 8, Katie Summers. After the Earth was destroyed by a Celestial, survivors moved into another planet. Here, Havoc and Wasp get married and have a child, Catherine Summers. However, she was born a human, not a mutant, and thus would be subjected to persecution in an all-mutant world. Consequently, her existence was kept secret to only her parents and her godfather Hank McCoy. Years later, Kang appeared and forced Havoc to follow his plan by taking Katie away. Given her connection to the alpha-level mutant Havoc though, if they ever decided to retcon Katie, we can guess that at some point she'd develop a similar power set to Havoc. So if they ever decide to retcon her, she'll be pretty powerful. Havoc absorbs ambient cosmic energy into his cells of his body and processes it into plasma. This results in control over an extremely powerful sort of destructive force. And at times he's not entirely able to control this ability, which sometimes makes him a danger to those around him unless he wears a special containment suit to assist him. Havoc's body is also constantly in the process of absorbing cosmic radiation, so he can basically do it whenever. And given that superhero kids are usually more powerful than their parents, if they ever decide to retcon her, this is gonna be scary, okay? Look, I know that she's a human, but sometimes humans are the most powerful beings. She's also number 8, so chill.
Number 7. Torrin Thorsdottir. Torrin Thorsdottir is the daughter of Sif and Thor, who hails from the alternate future that we see in the animated series Next Avengers Heroes of Tomorrow. In this reality, Torrin and the other young surviving heroes were kept safe by Iron Man and aided additionally by Hulk and Vision when it came to their battles and their training as young heroes. Young Avengers. Not Young Avengers though, Next Avengers. Young Avengers is a different thing. Torrin was basically sent to Midgard by her parents to learn the same lesson that Odin had sought to teach Thor by sending him away. She has all the powers of an Asgardian, being the daughter of Thor and Sif, and also seems to have lightning and thunder powers similar to her father. Number 6. Thena Thorsdottir. Thena hails from the MC2 reality of Earth 982. Here Thena is the daughter of Thor, although mysteriously we do not know who her mother is, which seems to be a recurring theme in a lot of Thor's kids. She ends up chasing down her cousin Silene, daughter of Loki, to attempt to stop her evil plot from succeeding and to rescue Kevin Masterson, son of Thunderstrike aka Eric Masterson, whom Silene had kidnapped. In the process, she runs into the New Avengers, also known via the comics as the Avengers Next Team, after a quick fight due to a misunderstanding. Thena would join with the Avengers, continuing to pursue Silene and successfully defeating her and rescuing Kevin in the end with their help. Thena is similar to Torrin in terms of her capabilities, but is more experienced, so she ranks a little higher for that reason. At least she seems more experienced to me. It's my opinion. Number 4. Modi. This is the Modi we talk about normally when we mention that name in conjunction with Thor's. He is the son of Thor and Hela, who in the reality of Earth 1610, also known as the Ultimate Universe, which he hails from, were not uncle and niece as they are in the main continuity of Earth 616 in the comics, and were not brother and sister either as they are known to be in the MCU reality of Earth 199999. Sometimes referred to cinematically as Earth 616, which is super confusing for us because, you know, 616 is the main comic book continuity, so what are we doing with that? Thor made a deal with Hela to give her a child so that he might once more return to Valkyrie's side on Earth. Eventually, he would be allowed to return to Earth, but only after Valkyrie had died. Modi was the son that would be born from this deal and would be gifted in magics and was capable of teleportation. He was also able to wield Mjolnir. Instead of being a hero like most of Thor's alt-reality kids, Modi tends to be more villain in the 1610 universe. Must be Hela's influence.
And at 3, Hulk Gang. The Hulk Gang is a gang of hillbilly Hulks who are the result of Hulk impregnating his first cousin's She-Hulk, though not willingly, might I add. Most of the Hulk Gang members though are grandchildren of Bruce Banner, who have become run-of-the-mill thugs, beating or killing people when they don't pay their rent on time. When the Hulk Gang found Logan and he didn't have his money to pay the rent for his farm, its members Bobby Joe, Charlie, and Otis Banner paid a visit to him and punished him for missing a payment. Shortly before leaving though, they said that he had to pay double next month, otherwise they would kill him and his family. However, while Logan was away delivering a package with Hawkeye to get the money that he actually owed them, the Hulk Gang got bored and murdered his family. Once Logan returned home and learned about what happened in his absence from his neighbor Abraham, he went after the Hulk Gang and killed all of the members that he actually encountered, including Bobby Joe, Charlie, Otis, Rufus, Woody, Bo, Elrod, Eustace, and Luke Banner. So attaboy Logan. But ultimately, in at number 2, Vivian Vision. Viv was a synthezoid created by the Vision in his process to humanize himself through the creation of a family. The brainwaves of Viv and her twin brother Vin come from the combination of the brain patterns of Vision and Virginia, Viv and Vin's mother and Vision's wife. The Visions moved to Arlington, Virginia in order to facilitate Vision becoming the Avengers' White House liaison, but I also kind of find that funny. Vision, Virginia, Viv, and Vin moved to Virginia. Come on. The family though became instant celebrities with their neighbors, constantly seeking pictures and then them posting them online. This caught the attention of Eric Williams, who became upset that Vision would create a family that appeared to be happy, when the Williams family wasn't, which, I mean, like, what? That's like getting mad at an Instagram model for faking her life. As well as the fact that the Vision's brainwaves were taken from his brother Simon in the first place. Both Viv and Finn attended school at the Alexander Hamilton High School in Fairfax, but they were assigned different schedules to help them assimilate with their classmates. Considering how I previously said that Ultron assimilated a whole load of robots, you kinda have to admit the word assimilate their classmates is kinda setting off a few red flags here. And finally, in at number 1, Lyra. The daughter of Thundra, the Empress of the United Sisterhood, and the Incredible Hulk on Earth 8009, Lyra was gifted with the strength of her parents and trained as an elite warrior for the Sisterhood in their fight against men. But, unlike the other Gamma mutants, Lyra secretly grew weaker the angrier she got. Lyra was called by the Gynosure to head a secret mission, one not even her select band of warrior compatriots were aware of. The Sisterhood's cradle was malfunctioning, causing defective births, and without a replacement circuitry, it would be the end of the Sisterhood's ability to replenish their numbers, eventually leading to their extinction. Lyra was armed with Boudica, a wristwatch with an artificial intelligence linked to both the Sisterhood and Gynosure at all times, and sent to the men's cradle to steal the appropriate parts to repair their own cradle. When a traitor turned on Lyra at the request of the Gynosure, the replacement parts were destroyed in their fight. Lyra returned to Gynosure to confront her for her treachery, but was then sent to Earth 616 to seek out the great Norman Osborn and breed with him. Man, Norman Osborn, man.
Coming in at number 10, we have Damian Wayne, the son of Batman. Genetically engineered and grown in an artificial womb following a night of passion between Talia al Ghul and Bruce Wayne, Damian was intended by the villain Ra's al Ghul to be his ultimate successor as the ruler of the League of Shadows. Trained to be an assassin from an incredibly young age, Batman wasn't even aware he had a son until the boy was 10 years old and left in his care by Talia. And while initially the father and son combo had some issues sorting out their issues and Damian's stance on Batman's whole no killing rule, Damian has since become an important member of the Bat family as the 5th Robin and continues to be an essential ally of Batman to this day. Coming in at number 9, we have Shane Johns, the son of Martian Manhunter and Hawkgirl from an alternate future. While attempting to find a way to prevent Lex Luthor from unleashing the Dark Goddess Perpetua, the Justice League found themselves traveling through a 6-dimensional doorway to a future where the forces of good had seemingly finally won their constant battle with the forces of evil. All of the members of the Justice League seemed to have found happiness, especially Hawkgirl and Martian Manhunter, who had an ambitious young son named Shane. Unfortunately, this reality turned out to all be a ruse by the World Forger, but in a weird twist, Shane still decided to ally himself with the real Justice League, and used his incredibly strong psychic abilities to help save the day. That'll do, kid. That'll do. Coming in at number 8, we have Cube, Cyborg's son from a dark possible future. Hailing from a world where a force known as the Darkness has threatened to corrupt all of the Earth's heroes, Cube's real name is George Marvin Stone. The son of Cyborg, Cube is literally a human mother box, connected down at the DNA level to one of the most iconic objects in the entire DC universe. Because of this complete integration with alien technology, Cube is able to perform all of the tech-based powers that his father has, alongside being capable of generating his own teleporting boom tubes whenever he wants. With all of those powers combined, Cube is definitely a cyborg you don't want to mess with.
Number 7, Supergirl. This is the imaginary daughter of Superman, but she still likely exists in some alternate reality, because technically every imagining is like an alternate reality, if that makes sense. So she exists probably somewhere out in the multiverse other than just Superman's dream, and so I'm gonna counter. Also, the dream featuring her in retrospect to the rest of the universe is like really tragic, so I feel like for that reason alone, we should just talk about it, because it's a pretty cool moment in Injustice, because tragic things are cool when they are safely contained in fictional worlds and can make you feel emotions without actually having to deal with the consequences of the tragedies that the emotions come from. Supergirl is Laura Lane Kent, the daughter Lois and Clark would have had in the event that Joker and Harley hadn't made Superman believe Lois was Doomsday and made him kill her. In this very different world, Superman and his daughter, Supergirl, are both still heroes. Her powers are very similar to her father's, and while she isn't quite as experienced as he is, she is still on a similar level when it comes to what she's capable of.
Coming in at number 6, we have Nightwing, the adopted son of Batman and the very first Robin. While not biologically a child of the Justice League, Dick Grayson has been by Batman's side since nearly the very beginning, essentially adopted by Bruce Wayne following the death of his circus performer parents, and becoming the very first Robin, the Boy Wonder. Since then, Dick Grayson has accomplished a lot, helping found the Teen Titans, establishing his own superhero identity as Nightwing, and even briefly taking over the position of Batman on a few occasions where Bruce Wayne was incapable of performing the role. No matter what the future of the DC Universe brings, Nightwing will always be an incredible fan favorite.
Halfway through into number 5, Nora West Allen. In a previous timeline, Nora went back to the past to finally meet her father and became part of Team Flash, working alongside her parents and her friends. However, unbeknownst to the team at the time, Nora was working with Eobard Thawne, who was imprisoned in 2049, on a secret agenda to destroy Cicada's dagger, and so that he would be saved from execution, whereas Nora was trying to save Barry from vanishing in a future crisis. After Team Flash defeated Cicada by administering the metahuman cure to her younger self and destroying her uncle's dagger, Nora was then erased from existence once a new timeline started to set in. However, in the current post-crisis timeline created by Oliver Queen and the Paragons, Nora is a vigilante operating in 2049 who fights metahuman criminals such as Godspeed alongside her younger brother Bart. During one fight with Godspeed though, he went to the Flash Museum and used the cosmic treadmill to travel back in time. Fearing that they would never be able to find him if he got away, Nora and Bart broke their family's #1 rule and decided to follow him, eventually ending up in the present. Well, I guess our present, not their present. Saying present is kind of a broad term. However, Nora, I guess this post-crisis Nora, grew up with stories of her other timeline self. Of like, her parents were telling her about her other version, which is pretty messed up if you ask me. Like your parents going on and on about another version of literally you that you desperately have to try to live up to. Yeah, that's messed up. This isn't in the Arrowverse, by the way.
Coming in at number 4, we have Hunter Prince, the potential future son of Wonder Woman. In the same dark future that Cyborg's son Cube hailed from, from, Wonder Woman was one of the first heroes to be infected by the darkness, giving birth to a son that could become an even more powerful vessel for the villain. Wonder Woman gave the boy up to Superman and Lois Lane, hoping that they would be able to prevent her son from going to the dark side, but unfortunately, Hunter believed his mother was giving him up because he was male, as was Amazonian custom. Growing up angry at the previous generation that had failed him, Hunter possessed all of the strengths of Wonder Woman, including her lasso of truth and bracelets of submission, making him a truly powerful and angry enemy.
Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Bart Allen. Bart Allen was the product of the union between two families that had been bitter rivals for centuries. His father, Don Allen, was the son of Barry Allen, the second Flash, and his mother was Maloney Thawne, daughter of the Earth government president and descendant of Flash villains Cobalt Blue and Professor Zoom. Bart was born with his grandfather's speed, and he had an incredibly high metabolism that also caused him to age at hyperspeed. When he was chronologically 2 years old, physically, he looked like he was 12. After Wally helped him solve his aging problem, Bart helped Wally defeat Cobra. Bart then moved to Manchester, Alabama with Max Mercury. Max had also used his connections to supply Bart with a birth certificate, stuff like that, passport, you know the deal. And Bart began the 9th grade at Manchester Junior High, when he was probably like supposed to be like 4. He managed to make quite a few friends, chief among them being Carol Buckland. Max continued to train him in the art of super speed, having him run off courses while dodging axes and knives and solving jigsaw puzzles in midair, you know, stuff like that, I guess. Ultimately enlisting his aid to battle his old foe Savitar. During this time, Bart served a brief stint in the New Titans before becoming one of the founding members of Young Justice, before getting killed.
Coming in at number 2, we have Hyperman, a distant future version of the potential son of the Man of Steel. In the same reality where the storyline Kingdom Come took place, the young son of this reality Superman, Jonathan Kent, was kidnapped by the villain known as Gog and encased first in a prison of kryptonite and then trapped within the weird branch of reality known as Hypertime. Luckily, someone was there to watch over the infant, his own future self, a hero known as Hyperman that was destined to become even greater than Superman. The baby was eventually able to be saved through the joint efforts of the Kingdom Come universe and the main DC universe's heroes, and the Kingdom Come parents of this child are now determined to make sure that Hyperman's bright future becomes a reality. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have John Kent, the true son of Superman. Half Kryptonian and half human, John Kent was the most recent hero to take up the mantle of Superboy, using everything he'd learned from his parents, Clark Kent and Lois Lane, to be an inspiring force for the people of Earth. Aging quicker than usual due to weird time travel and reality-hopping hijinks, John Kent has since become the new Superman, taking over his father's position as the defender of truth, justice, and a better tomorrow, and trying to find his own place in the growing DC Omniverse. And to make things even more interesting, Batman has even theorized after examining John's DNA that the unique combination of human and Kryptonian genetics in his blood might mean that he could surpass even his own father when it comes to power once he's fully grown. All of this is to say that John Kent is, in my opinion, the most powerful son of the Justice League.
Number 10, Harry Osborn. Jealousy can go a long way. I mean, if your best friend got superpowers, would you not be the most jealous person on the planet? I mean, not only would I beg them for their powers, but I would probably end up resenting them. Like if my best friend was Spider-Man, yeah, I'm gonna be pretty upset every time I have to take a bus. Making his first appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man 31, Harry Osborn is Peter Parker's best friend. Played by James Franco in the Sam Raimi trilogy and Dane DeHaan in the Garfield Almost trilogy, this comic book character is one of my favorites to watch. So while Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, who is Norman Osborn, Willem Dafoe, his dad, they'd go head to head and fight. Peter Parker is also best friends with Harry Osborn, his son. So we got a little triangle of emotions there. So eventually Harry found out about his best friend's alter ego and became a madman, especially after Spider-Man killed his dad. Hello? Let's go. He also knows Peter Parker takes pics of Spider-Man, so he asks him to help with a plan. That plan didn't go well once he found out his worst enemy is also his best friend. So, donning his father's suit and becoming the next Green Goblin. Looking back at James Franco's performance as Harry Osborn, like, sure there were cringe moments, but overall this guy did a pretty good job with the character development over 3 films. This guy lasted 3 films. He even had some unreal, like, buddy cop moments with Spider-Man and Spider-Man 3. Plus, we got 3 movies with that James Franco stank guy, you know? Oh, he's so good. Then, of course, Dane DeHaan played him in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and his plan to hurt Peter's love interest worked a bit better, I'd say. Which Green Goblin did you prefer? I mean, let us know in the comments. Also, side question, who's your dream cast for Harry Osborn in the MCU right now? I feel like Timothée Chalamet is gonna get casted. He's a young age, he looks good, he looks cute, but he's kind of villainous. I feel like it's the perfect time for him to get thrown into the MCU. Number 9, Quicksilver. If you've seen the movie Kick-Ass recently, you may have noticed that 2 of the main characters, Dave and Todd, both ended up playing Quicksilver on screen. So Aaron Taylor Johnston played him in the MCU and Evan Peters played him in the X-Men universe. Quicksilver, aka Pedro Maximoff, is a speedster who made his first debut all the way back in 1964 in X-Men issue number 4. He's the twin of Wanda Maximoff and the son of Magneto. In X-Men Apocalypse, he casually reveals this information to Mystique, where she promptly responds with,
What?
What? Yeah, that's a pretty good response. He goes on to explain how he met him 10 years prior, but he didn't know at the time. And now, of course, Marvel didn't have the rights to all of these Fox characters, so his story is a little different. Aaron Taylor Johnston's version of the Quicksilver character got his powers from the Scepter, aka the Mind Stone. Same with Wanda, they're the Miracles, not mutants. Different M. See, I thought that Evan Peters' version was honestly wasted. I mean, the fact that he explains how badly he feels for being the fastest person ever, yet he's always late to these big, crucial life moments. These character arcs were really going somewhere, and by the time we got to Dark Phoenix, and it just, it just didn't matter. I think they wasted a lot of potential. Even Quicksilver's scenes were the staples in those movies. Like, as soon as you saw that Bumblebee start to slow down in X-Men Apocalypse, you already knew what was about to happen. And it was epic. It's probably the only scene that I will see. I see it on YouTube every now and then, and I'm like, you know what? I gotta watch this. It's too good. I'm hoping to see him come back in Disney Plus's WandaVision. Fingers crossed, guys. Let's do it. Number 8, Talia al Ghul. As you would have guessed just by her name, Talia al Ghul is the daughter of Ra's al Ghul. She made her first appearance in Detective Comics issue 411 and also played a main role in Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy in Dark Knight Rises, played by Marion Cotillard. This chick's pretty bad. I mean, Talia is the daughter of Melisandre and Ra's al Ghul, and after witnessing her mother being murdered by Quicken, she began to follow her villainous father's footsteps, learning more and more about the family business. Now, eventually becoming Ra's al Ghul's primary heir. At the end of Dark Knight Rises, we see a nice Nolan little character twist, where Miranda reveals her true identity. Now, in the comics, it's quite fun as well. See, Batman rescues her from Dr. Dark, and her first issue, actually, and Dr. Dark had actually once been a member of her father's League of Assassins. Interesting. Ra's al Ghul informed Batman that her and Robin had been kidnapped, so Batman goes in, of course, to save the day. Then he finds out it's all this big setup by Ra's al Ghul to see if he was good enough to take his daughter's hand in marriage. I feel like Tinder works a bit easier, you know? I mean, just type in your preferences. It's not, must have a cape, must be afraid of bats, no parents, no problem, super swipe. She's also the mother of Damian Wayne, but I'll save that story for another time. Number 7, Carnage. That's right, making its first appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man issue number 359, Carnage is a symbiote that is the offspring of Venom. Yeah, talk about a crazy kid. You think kids running around the mall crying is bad? Imagine the son of Venom. Wild stuff. So his host is none other than Cletus Cassidy. Cletus was sharing the same prison cell as Eddie Brock in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 344. So Cletus is hanging out, just carving a shank, kicking back, doing his thing. And at the same time, he was planning on stabbing Eddie Brock. Being a murderer and all, that's what they, do. So the Venom symbiote then comes in to save the day. So after Brock is reunited with that goopy fun, a small little piece of it attaches itself to Cletus, thus becoming Carnage. See, Carnage is a scary offspring of Venom, and probably the scariest of the Clintar. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing this angry boy in Venom. Let there be carnage. I wasn't a fan of Venom that much, but this crazy redhead is too fun to ignore. He's probably gonna kill it in the next one. Who's gonna make it, Spider-Man 1? Cool. Spider-Man 2, oh my god, way better. And also, we better get an R rating or I'm gonna kick somebody in the shins. The crazy offspring of Venom is being portrayed by Woody Harrelson, thank god, because he's amazing. And if you haven't seen the new Planet of the Apes trilogy, he's the human antagonist of the third one. And it's So good. He does a bang up job. I've always felt like Michael C. Hall would do a good job too, ever since Dexter. I'm telling you. Number 7, Rose Wilson. Rose Wilson is the daughter of Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, making her first appearance in Deathstroke the Terminator, issue 15. So after Deathstroke met Sweet Lily after his divorce with Adeline Kane, they ended up having a baby together. How lovely. Nothing more romantic than trekking to Thailand on a search and rescue mission, you know? Applebee's? Nah, it's not good enough. Not romantic enough, Applebee's. Get out of here. So Slade's half-brother, Wade, yeah, Wade Wilson, it's a whole thing, I know. So Slade, using his persona, Ravager, tried killing all of Slade's friends and family. Not cool, dude. So after Sweet Lily drove off a cliff and died, Rose reached out to her father, Slade, but he wasn't on board. He felt like he was responsible for the death of 2 of his sons, so naturally he's like, nah, get away from me, you don't want any part of this. So she ended up joining the Titans. After being injured from a training exercise, she had her first experience with her precognitive powers, seeing a vision of Deathstroke's future. This next part is insane. So Deathstroke hired Ravager, the same guy who attacked his family, to go and kill Rose for $100,000. That's not even that much either. Like, I mean, higher. Negotiate. Then he alerted the Titans anonymously, and after barely escaping, Rose woke up in Deathstroke's lair, where he apologized to Rose for abandoning her at a young age. I mean, you know, going out for ice cream would have sufficed, but hiring assassins to kill you works just as well. Whatever you prefer. Tomatoes, tomatoes, to each their own. Have at her. Number 6, Loki. Arguably one of the best characters of the MCU, Loki is the adoptive son of Odin. But who are his real parents? Loki Laufeyson, yes, that's his real name, has a little tongue twister in it, is the son of the frost giant, Laufey. He was left as a baby, abandoned in his home world, Jotunheim. During a battle, Odin had found his lost child and took him in as his own. We see this in the first Thor movie back in 2011. When Loki finds out that his motives are peddled by being the offspring of an evil frost giant, he gets a little upset. He always felt different growing up, and often looked down on Thor as he got the most attention growing up, being Odin's true son. Odin had chosen not to tell Loki of his true heritage and raise him as one of his own, being a nice guy and all. But with evil powers comes evil responsibility, and Loki ended up becoming the villain a year later in the 2012 Avengers film. See, I favored Loki's storyline more than half of the main Avengers. I mean, the adoptive thing wasn't taken lightly at all, and Tom Hiddleston did an amazing job showing these moments of weakness and anger to Odin. He met his demise in Infinity War, we think, but you know, we have this whole Disney Plus show titled Loki coming out soon, so I feel like the God of Mischief isn't quite done with us yet, thankfully. Number 5, Alexei Kravinoff. Son of Kraven the Hunter, Alexei is just as capable of killing the Webhead. Making his first appearance in the Spectacular Spider-Man issue 243, Alexei is a son of Kraven the Hunter and a mutant woman. So Alexei has his father's powers, but he also has powers that allowed him to talk to animals, passed down from his mutant mother. I've always wanted that power too. I mean, the amount of times I've had to take on raccoons with like a hockey stick, like, can you guys just leave, please? It'd be so much easier if I could just... and then they leave. That's it, no problems. He's also known as the second Kraven the Hunter, I mean, obviously. And there's even talks of Jason Momoa playing Kraven the Hunter in the next live-action Spider-Man movie for the MCU. And with Jamie Foxx just being announced to reprise his role as Electro, we could potentially see Kraven join in to complete the Sinister Six lineup, which is something we almost got in the Amazing Spider-Man Almost trilogy. So it may finally be happening, people. Hold on to your butts. And if he's defeated, we always know that his son will just come in and be Kraven the Hunter 2.0. Good to know. Number 4, Thane. Remember that guy from Infinity War? His name was Thanos. It's kind of a big deal, had a gauntlet, loved snapping his fingers, maybe he watched a lot of West Side Story, I don't know. Yeah, he has a son named Thane. He's the outcome when you mix Thanos with an Inhuman. He made his first appearance in the New Avengers Volume 3, Issue 10, also referred to as Living Death. Thane is quite the descendant. His powers are so strong that he needed Ebony Maw, aka Squidward, to make him a containment suit. Without the suit, his powers were very unstable. I mean, this guy goes to work. He once trapped Thanos and Proxima Midnight in an amber construct by using just his right hand. My right hand is really weak, especially today. I have morning hands still, you know, where you just can't open anything. It's just a weak day. Yeah, morning hands. You're welcome for that. So after seeing that, Ebony Maw's like, hey man, let's just chill. I can discipline you. You'll be a good guy. Don't listen to your dad. He's kind of a dick. Number 3, Cynthia Schmidt. First appearing in Captain America issue 290, she's the daughter of Red Skull. That's right, the villain in Captain America, the first Avenger. So Red Skull realized he needs a male heir and went out, found himself a washerwoman, and went about it. After the mother had died during childbirth, Red Skull, better known as Johann Schmidt, almost killed the child because it had been a girl and not a boy. What a monster. So Susan Scarborough was like, hey, that's just a bit wild, maybe let's not do that, I'll raise her, what do you say? And he agreed. So the Red Skull passed on his wisdom through Susan. He came back as she was a child and put her in a machine that sped up her aging process, making her an adult and giving her her superpowers, thus becoming Mother Superior, the leader of the Sisters of Sin. My favorite part of all this, one time Captain America was put in this machine and became super old. And then when he used the machine to revert back to regular age, he took the sisters with him so that they also de-aged. And I honestly think we're gonna see some sort of version of this in the MCU now with Scott Lang's Van. I mean, sure, they failed at making a time machine, but they also accidentally created this aging machine or de-aging machine. So like, can we throw Cap back in there and just get him to sign some more movie contracts? Cause I feel like we're not done with Chris Evans yet. And number 2, Star-Lord. Of course, I have to include him in this list as he found out who his real father was in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Yep, I said spoilers earlier, you were warned. After the events of Guardians of the Galaxy 1 unfolded, Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, was able to hold an Infinity Stone with his bare hands. And this didn't go unnoticed. Even groups of beings in the past have been trying to be able to maintain that power, and they failed. Even connecting themselves to share it, it didn't work. It's a power stone, it's way too powerful. His real father turned out to be not David Hasselhoff, but Ego, the living planet. Peter Quill's powers were explained to him by his father, played by Kurt Russell, and soon after we got to see them playing catch, and it was insanely awkward and funny. Ego turned out to be not a nice guy. Killing Ego meant saying goodbye to his father's powers that were handed down to him, these celestial powers. But that wasn't a problem for Star-Lord. I mean, it sure would have helped beat Thanos, but I'm sure he would have just messed that plan up too. Moody man. And finally, number 1, Vision. Yep, hear me out, okay? So in Avengers Age of Ultron, we find the twins, one of which I was talking about earlier, Pietro, aka Quicksilver, and the other, Wanda, aka Scarlet Witch. Their powers are given to them not by Magneto in this world, but one of the Infinity Stones, the Mind Stone. After Ultron is accidentally created, he has one idea, to have a kid, make a new body, you know, pass it on. So after being created by Stark, Ultron was born with the same goals almost. So he figured if he took some vibranium and mixed it with that same stone that gave him life, he could make an unbelievable new body, a stronger body. And he nearly succeeds. That is until Tony Stark and the gang comes in, gets the Scepter, and thinks, you know what, why not finish the mission? So they plug the dude in and they finish the download, now we have Vision. And the rest of the Avengers aren't too fond of this idea, as it's a stronger version of Ultron, and that dude's in the air right now trying to blast the, you know, he's not nice. If at first you don't succeed, just try it again, you know? So Vision pops out, starts questioning his existence the same way his original creator, Ultron, did. The team carefully walks around him, and it isn't until Vision lifts Thor's hammer until they trust him. So Vision floats up to Ultron in the final battle, and Ultron says to him, "My vision." That's his baby, and now he has a cape and he sounds like Paul Bettany. What's going on? Are you guys looking forward to seeing Vision somehow make a return in WandaVision on Disney+? Let us know down below how you think he's coming back, because we have a couple ideas cooking over here.
Number 10, Amora and Thor hybrid clones. One of the only children, if you want to call them that Thor actually has in the main continuity were actually genetically engineered by a man named Price, who was a scientist. A mad scientist, I would say. A scientist who ate one too many mushrooms and then had a vision of Yggdrasil. Because of his vision, he believed that after Ragnarok, a new superior race of beings would come into existence, and after getting genetic samples from both Amora and Thor, created clones of those two people together, who for some reason were all male, but anyways. They had no individual names, but were simply known as Price's clones. He created them to help him build the world engine, which would usher in the new superior race meant to come into existence following Ragnarok, as per Price's vision. There is also a lot of romantic tension in this story between Thor and Amora, where they both end up confronting Price and his creations. Also, all of them are bald, which I feel like if they're Thor and Amora clones, I feel like they should have lots of hair. In my mind. Both of those people got lots of hair. Number 9, Modi the Angry. This Modi is the son of a past version of Thor, so not the Thor that we know from 616, but technically this Modi would be from 616. He is one of the few survivors of a past Ragnarok event. The Eye of Odin tells main continuity Thor about this tale, showing him the Ragnarok that had happened and a past version of Thor's place in it. While this past version of Thor died in a fight against the serpent, he was survived by his 2 sons, one of which was Modi. We don't know much about Modi, we don't even seem to know who his mother was. Technically, Modi is the son of a past Thor, but all versions of Thor's children are welcome on this list, so that's why we can count them. Especially as in the main continuity, Thor, like I said, doesn't really have kids. Not even in the comics. A lot of them are alt kids from alternate realities. Modi has bright red hair and seems to be armed with daggers. While we don't know much, we do know he was strong enough to survive Ragnarok, which completely ravaged the Nether Realms, and that's pretty impressive. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you're loving our channel, please head on over to our Facebook page where you can also show us your love by clicking that like and clicking that follow. Whoa, 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 whoa! Number 8. Magni the Stronger. This Magni is another son of past Thor who also makes his first appearance alongside his brother Modi in the original Thor series in issue 293. Where Modi is known as the Angry, Magni is known as the Strong. Throughout the various alternate universes we've seen, Magni would become a more preferred name as well for Thor's potential children. Well, one of the preferred names. There's a couple. Whether it be a past version of Thor or possibly a future version of Thor, Magni is a name that we will see again. Like Modi, Magni also is one of the few to survive Ragnarok despite the destruction of the Nether Realms, which, as I said, is pretty dang impressive because, yeah, Ragnarok usually kills everybody. Also, Magni and Modi both prove together in the following issue that they are both strong enough of will to resist the temptation to use their father's hammer Mjolnir to rule over the other surviving Asgardians, and that they are strong enough of might to hurl it away from them all the way through space and down to Midgard with a single mighty toss. It's a joint toss, but still, that's pretty impressive to me. That's a far throw.
And at 7, Scotty Summers. Hailing from Earth 1298, Scotty is Alex Summers and Madeline Pryor's son. Scotty, as he came to be known, was born to the mutant superhero Havoc and his then girlfriend Madeline. Sometime after his birth, his mom and dad got married and they moved in with the reformed X-Factor. As a child, he showed no signs of exceptional power and enjoyed a normal life until the Inferno event. During Inferno, he was captured by a couple demons who planned to use him as a sacrifice to open up the world to the malevolent Goblin Force. Alone and afraid, he was rescued by his mother Madeline, who brokered a deal with the demons in exchange for her son's life. He returned home with her, and the demons and the nightmare it seemed were over. But when Havoc of Earth 616 wound up in his counterpart in the Mutant X's reality's dead body, Scott immediately recognized that this Havoc was not truly his father. This was the first hint at the scope of young Scotty's power. When his mother was possessed by the Goblin Queen, Scotty was also taken by his father and their nanny, the ninja assassin Elektra. The three became like a family themselves, and Scotty even bonded with his new father. Eventually, Scotty during the battle was captured along with Havoc by the evil entity, but he knew that he was in the right place at the right time, and incidentally knew exactly what to do to end the fight. With a simple touch, he managed to defeat the Goblin Queen, who was possessing his mother at the time. But yeah, it's pretty overpowered. I guess you could say that Scotty doesn't know about his powers. And at 6, Vision. The MCU Vision is in essence the son of Tony Stark, Bruce Banner, Ultron, and Thor, which is honestly a really weird combination. Or if you want to get more technical, I guess Thor and Ultron are closer to his parents, with like Tony and Bruce basically being his grandparents, aside from the whole using Jarvis to make Vision thing. So I guess technically, by that logic, Tony is also Vision's father and grandfather. What? Either way, powered by an advanced AI and the Mind Stone, Vision is probably one of the most powerful Avengers until he was killed in Infinity War at the hands of Wanda and then Thanos, which was a stupid idea as we saw thanks to Ultron's ease with Thanos in the What If series on Disney+, where using the Mind Stone, Ultron just literally tore Thanos in half, which is probably what Vision could have done, resulting in one of the most frustrating moments of the entire MCU to me. But oh well, what are you gonna do? But yeah, I think that with the Mind Stone he is certainly powerful, but his reluctance to use it to kill Thanos puts him higher on the list, as well as, you know, the whole being mostly dead thing. Halfway through in at number 5, Valeria Richards. Valeria Richards is the second son of Dr. Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, and Susan Richards, aka the Invisible Woman, who did serve as Avengers for a couple of missions. Due to her parents being exposed to cosmic radiation and being conceived in the negative zone, it caused her birth to be traumatic. But thanks to her uncle, Dr. Doom, he saved her life using a combination of science and magic. She was born a standard human and developed a genius-level intellect like her father. But as an unborn infant, when she was approaching term, she began to emit bursts of deadly radiation that threatened both her and her mother. Despite bringing in fellow scientists and radiation experts like Bruce Banner, Michael Morbius, and Otto Octavius, Reed Richards was unable to save his daughter, who appeared to be stillborn. Appearances can be deceiving though. Franklin Richards, the couple's first child, felt a deep loss over his sister, because, you know, he didn't have a sister anymore. Unconsciously though, he secretly used his psionic powers to transport this daughter to an alternate reality. After Franklin's cosmic powers were depleted during a battle to save all reality, Valeria reverted to an unborn child within Sue's womb. So all of a sudden, she was pregnant with Valeria again. Yeah, Sue then came to term, but again her life was threatened by bursts of radiation from the child. However, this time Johnny Storm enlisted the aid of Dr. Doom, who was able to save her, but not without a price.
Number 3. Woden Thorson. Woden Thorson is the son of Thor and Sif from the 31st century, and this alternate take on the future appearing in Guardians of the Galaxy and known as Earth 691. Woden would suffer initially from having an absent father. Thor could basically not give up adventuring, leaving Sif mainly alone to parent their son. It wasn't until Thor was forced to stay home by Odin that Woden became a potential heroic figure, learning from his father and actually taking pride in his heritage and his people as he learned more about them from Thor. Although why Sif wasn't able to instill this in Woden herself, also being a warrior from Asgard, I'm not really sure, but hey, sometimes I guess you just need your dad around, you know, that's fine. Thor would spend more and more time at the Mead Hall, prompting Woden to leave home. However, he would later return after Loki and his Inhuman army had taken over, and he returned to fight against his evil uncle. Loki would be defeated by Woden, who wielded Mjolnir in the battle, as well as father was no longer worthy to lift the hammer. Woden was. Number 2. Magni. This Magni is typically the one that we talk about when we are talking about the son of Thor, Magni. So usually when people say that, they're talking about this one. Like I said, there's a lot of repeating of names when it comes to alternate kids. It's great. It's a little confusing, but it's great. He hails from the alternate future reality of Earth 3515, which was erased from existence at the behest kind of Magni. The future Allfather Thor, who had Magni with his queen Amora, the Enchantress, ended up traveling back in time to warn his past self about everything that would come to pass should he rule over Midgard, which is also something that happened in this future and sent Thor down a pretty dark path. Thor of the present listened to the warning of his future self and heeded it, preventing this Magni from ever really existing. When he did exist though, Magni was considered to be similar to Thor in his abilities, but he was also believed to be even stronger physically than Thor had been, being known as the God of Strength. Magni was also capable of wielding Mjolnir in his lifetime. His short lifetime. R.I.P. Number 1. Starbrand. While not a child of his or Iron Man's loins, Brandy Selby became the adopted goddaughter of Thor in issue 32 of the 2018 Avengers series. He promised to take care of her after the Avengers, as he saw it, failed her mother, who died in childbirth. Thor especially felt bad as he had succumbed to being possessed by the Brood at that time, and really wasn't much help to the team when they came across the previous Starbrand, Suzanne, Brandy's mother, who went into labor. She gave birth to a healthy baby girl, but didn't survive the delivery herself. She passed on her Starbrand to her unnamed baby as she died, who was later named Brandy by the Avengers, who basically took Brandy in and kinda like did their best to raise her, Thor included. Kind of, I think, a pretty fun story. Lately, she's gone through a dramatic age up in the comics, which has also seen her come more into her own when it comes to controlling her power and tapping into its full potential. And if you didn't know, the Starbrand is pretty amazingly powerful when we're talking about cosmic power forces. It's pretty nuts. A lot Brandy could do with that for sure. A lot of harm, a lot of good. A lot of stuff. Number 10. Gloria Brickman. Gloria was Mystique's adopted daughter while she was in the guise of Mallory Brickman. In fact, this secret identity for Mystique created a bit of a mystery, as we don't know if there ever was a real Mallory Brickman, or if Mystique had been impersonating her since she met Senator Ralph Brickman. It's possible that Mallory was simply a persona that Mystique created, and that never really existed without her, especially as their young, likely preteen daughter was revealed to be adopted. Gloria remained suspicious of her mother. She talked to a federal agent about her concerns when it came to her mom always acting strangely. Mystique herself appeared to be just using her family to help her get back at Sabretooth, who had kidnapped the love of her life's grandson, Destiny's grandson, Trevor Chase.
Number 9. Trevor Chase. Speaking of Trevor, let's talk about the little guy. This one might be a stretch, but just go with me on this one. We all know that Mystique and Destiny are like a thing. They're lovers, they're a couple, they're life partners. You get the point. As life partners, they share an extended family, so Destiny's descendants are also Mystique's in a way. So Destiny's grandson, Trevor Chase, is also Mystique's, sort of. Trevor is the son of Justine and Cole Chase, Justine being Destiny's daughter. Justine and Cole people were friends with Mystique and she looked after them after Destiny's death. They're all pretty much a family, so I'm saying that Trevor is basically a child of Mystique adjacent.
Number 8. Anna Raven. This is the daughter of an alternate Mystique in Destiny on Earth 797. His codename instead of Mystique was either Mystic or Mystique, which Mystique in French, which is weird because Mystique, you know, it is French. Anyways, in Exiles, we see him visiting the graves of his life partner Destiny and their daughter Anna Raven, likely an alternate version of Rogue, possibly a version who was the naturally born daughter of her parents Mystique and Destiny, which would be pretty cool.
Number 7. Linda Darkholme. Linda Darkholme was married to Kurt Darkholme, aka Nightcrawler, making her Mystique's daughter-in-law. We don't know for sure if she was a mutant or not since she wasn't featured long enough to see any character development. Linda's character was only featured briefly in Uncanny X-Force issue 25, and she was killed off by the Blob. In the issue, Nightcrawler comes home to find the Blob had attacked and killed Linda, and that was kind of the last we heard of her. She was a pretty insignificant character as far as development goes, but she's still a daughter of Mystique by marriage.
Number 6. Charles Xavier II. There are two alternate versions of Charles Xavier II, the son of Mystique and Charles Xavier. However, one was likely erased from existence due to, well, a separate issue, so we're going to focus on the adult Charles II from the alternate Earth of 13729. This version of Charles was believed to have been conceived while Mystique was in the guise of Moira McTaggart. Mystique abandoned baby Charles when he was born. It's unknown how powerful he is exactly compared to his dad, but his powers mirror that of Professor X. He is a capable and disciplined telepath capable of controlling or shielding multiple minds at once. When his powers first manifested, Charles accidentally killed his adopted mother, causing him to seek out his natural birth mother. Instead, he found his maternal half-brother who had already killed their mother and was impersonating her.
Number 5. Magneto. I'm pretty sure everyone knows who Magneto is. He's the super powerful mutant with the ability to create and control magnetic fields. Magneto was married to an alternate version of Rogue during Age of Apocalypse. Rogue, being the adopted daughter of Mystique, makes Magneto Mystique's son-in-law. A lot of marriage. Magneto and Rogue became lovers after it was discovered that Magneto's magnetic powers made him resistant to Rogue's absorption abilities. I don't know how romantic that sounds to me, but I guess it was nice for them. Together the pair had a child named Charles, named after Charles Xavier, making him the grandson of Mystique by law.
Number 4. Raze Darkholme. Raze is the child of Mystique and Wolverine from an alternate universe. He hails from Earth 13729 and was created by Brian Michael Bendis and Stuart Immonen. Although he might be the son of Mystique and Logan, he doesn't have a great relationship with either, having tried to kill both of them, and actually succeeding, I think, at least in one of those cases. He joined his half-brother Charles Xavier II on the Future Brotherhood team and passionately believes and fights for mutant rights to an extreme. Raze believes all humans need to be eliminated in order for mutants to finally live in peace.
Number 3. Nightcrawler. So while she was still in her Raven persona, Mystique marries Baron Christian Wagner, who was a member of the German nobility. Basically, this guy underperformed as a lover, and Mystique headed out behind his back, using her shape-shifting abilities to hook up with other men trying to conceive an heir. Eventually, she meets Azazel, who's this immortal father of the Neophan, super bad spooky guy. Mystique gets pregnant with Azazel's child and she gives birth to the baby, being Nightcrawler. He was born with blue skin, yellow eyes, and a pointed tail, and if that doesn't scream mutant, I don't know what does. After he was abandoned, he was found by Azazel's lover and raised in the circus. His powers manifested around puberty and he became the cool blue teleporting dude we know today. Also, fun fact, Mystique and Destiny were supposed to be his bio parents, but the Comics Code Authority prohibited the portrayal of gay or bisexual characters at the time. But it would have been really cool to see them, like,
Number 2. Rogue. Rogue is obviously one of the most well-known of Mystique's children and one of the most popular. Rogue first appeared in the comics in 1981 in Avengers Annual Issue Number 1. We would later learn that Rogue ran away from the hippie commune where she grew up after her mother's death. She would live life on her own for a time, her mutant powers manifesting before she met Mystique. Destiny had sent Mystique to find Rogue and recruit her to their cause, convincing her to join the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. To both Destiny and Mystique, however, Rogue was always like their daughter. Mystique treated her as such, and despite all the wrongdoings she has committed in her past, has always done what she can to protect Rogue. In a way, Rogue probably received Mystique's best attempt at being a good mother, which, you know, doesn't really mean a lot coming from Mystique, because she's a pretty terrible mother, but it's clear to see that Raven truly cares for her daughter, even when Rogue is focused on hating her mom's guts and wants nothing to do with her.
At number 1, Graydon Creed. Graydon Creed is the epitome of mommy/daddy issues. He was conceived through the utter seduction and bamboozlement as his mother Mystique seduced freelance assassin Victor Creed, also known as Sabretooth, while they were stationed in Germany. During this time, Mystique, while in her Raven persona, had taken on the identity of deceased German secret agent Lenny Zauber. The two became lovers and had Graydon together, though Mystique faked her own death in order to leave Victor and ended up giving Graydon up for adoption. Now, even though Graydon was born to 2 mutants, he was not a mutant himself, and this sort of fueled the rage inside of him. So in Graydon's later years, he carried this hatred for his parents with him, and it grew to encapsulate all mutants. He even went so far as to organize a group called Friends of Humanity. Though this sounds like a cute and catchy name, their purpose was very much the opposite. The group was opposed to the civil rights of mutants and committed terrorist attacks against them. Graydon was also a hopeful presidential candidate at one point, but never fully ascended to the coveted position as he was assassinated by a future version of his mother Mystique as an act of revenge for the Friends of Humanity's part in the attack on Trevor Chase, the descendant of Mystique's lover Destiny.
And at 10, Barry Allen. Okay, I know you're probably confused with this one. Like, how is Barry Allen a child of himself? One of the Flashes and the original Silver Age Flash. Well, in the Crisis on Infinite Earths comic crossover event, Barry ends up running so fast that he ruptures the time barrier. This kills him, but also it converts his physical being into lightning. And since he was running so fast, he also travels through time, because, you know, comics. In fact, he travels back to the day he got his powers, perhaps because he was thinking about how that one day led to all of this. However, when his physical form, now lightning, travels through time, he actually becomes the lightning bolt that struck himself. So Barry Allen gave Barry Allen his powers. So in a way, of Flashes creating other Flashes, Barry Allen is the child of Barry Allen. Yeah, you heard me right. It was also later strongly implied that Barry's soul resides inside the Speed Force, the source of power for all speedsters. So technically, if you want to look at it like that as well, every speedster who uses the Speed Force is also a child of Barry. And at 9, Velocity. Velocity is a clone of Jay Garrick created by Brain and Monsieur Mala and sold to Ratu Benin, dictator of Mali. Velocity is unleashed upon the outsiders when they're discovered by Benin, and the speedster comes close to defeating the team while Metamorpho attacks him with acid and manages to overpower him. He's later taken by Green Lantern, who states that the outsiders cannot be trusted. He also has all the powers of the Flash, except with one flaw, that he cannot survive outside of his suit for long. And I mean, it's certainly a badass suit, cause like, look at that thing. If I wore that thing, I'd never want to take it off. Add the fact that I can't take it off, I would die, and then there's no way that you're getting that thing off me. And Velocity, like Jay Garrick, doesn't need access to the Speed Force to run at superhuman speeds, which is certainly beneficial if, say, the Speed Force were to die because the Spectre had to unlock its power during Crisis and it threatened, you know, to end life on all planets and literally every other Earth was destroyed and you were stranded at the vanishing point, you know. And at 8, Jenny Onatz. Jenny Onatz was the granddaughter of Barry Allen and a speedster like him. She was a member of the Legion of Superheroes under the name XS. Despite her ancestry though, Jenny did not at first display any signs of super speed. However, the Dominators, knowing her family heritage, captured her, and at the sight of seeing her father tortured, her latent super speed powers did activate. She managed to escape with her father before stray fire from the Dominators caused their base to explode, and during the Legion's first trip to the 20th century, XS was separated from them. She ended up meeting her cousin Impulse and became good friends with him. She ended up revealing how she was participating in an archaeological dig in the future, and XS fought side by side with Impulse and other speedsters during the events of Dead Heat. Afterwards, the 27th century Flash fixed her grandfather's cosmic treadmill, enabling her to go home. Unfortunately, she overshot, encountering 2 further incarnations of the Legion before getting back to her time. Impulse, though, left her a goodbye note in the building that she was participating in excavating, so that's sweet.
Coming in at number 7, we have Zod, the born-in-a-lab spawn of an evil Superman and Wonder Woman from the world of the Justice Lords. Named after one of Superman's most iconic villains, this Zod was born on a world where Superman turned to the dark side and turned the Justice League into the Justice Lords following the death of their universe's Flash. Unfortunately, following the birth of Zod, the baby was kidnapped by a brainiac from another universe and locked away in the Phantom Zone, which is probably the least ideal place possible to raise a child. With both Kryptonian and Amazonian blood flowing through his veins, Zod was beyond dangerous even if he just remained a little kid.
And at 6, Jay West. Jay West and his twin sister Iris were born to the third Flash, Wally West, and his wife Linda Park. Although the twins were initially miscarried miscarried as the result of an attack by Zoom, Linda's pregnancy was miraculously restored during a later battle, somehow. When Wally went into the Speed Force during a battle with Superboy Prime, he brought Linda and the infant twins with him, and spent some time in an Earth-like world inhabited by an alternate version of Jay Garrick, and they traveled to another planet occupied by technologically advanced aliens who had dealings with a Flash in the past. Yep, this is actually true. When they were first born, Jay and his sister exhibited no signs of having inherited their father's powers. However, after turning 3 months old, their metabolisms sped up and they began to age rapidly and exhibited powers. Their alien hosts, I mean, like, not like they were hosted, like the aliens that were living with the Wests, I guess I should say, taught Linda the basics of operating machinery that would stabilize the twins' powers, and I guess kind of halt their accelerated aging. Jay once overheard his father explain this to a Justice League teammate though, and he mentioned the possibility that the twins could age so much that they died. Deeply frightened by this, he kept this information to himself, but later on did reveal it to his sister, who she revealed that she already kind of guessed that. I mean, like, it's kind of obvious.
Number 5, Supergirl. Seriously, get ready for a list full of Supergirls, because unsurprisingly, a lot of Superman's kids take up that mantle. This Supergirl is Lara Kent from Frank Miller's Dark Knight Alternate Earth, aka Earth 31. Here, Lara is the daughter of Superman and Wonder Woman. She stands out due to her very, very blue hair. Being a hybrid baby, she ends up inheriting both her parents' powers, making her super powerful and an immensely skilled fighter, having been trained by her mother in the way of the Amazons. One thing that makes her unique as well in comparison to some of the other super kids out there is that she believes her powers make her better than non-powered people, and she actually strives to one day rule over the non-powered people of Earth. A little bit villainous there, Lara. I mean, she's not gonna do it because she's like, I know my dad's like, these people, we gotta protect them. But she's definitely thinking about it.
And for inertia, the bitter feud between the Allen family and the Thawne family would span generations, although despite them actually kind of sharing blood. Even in the 30th century, President Thawne sought to recruit Bart Allen in his revenge campaign against the Allens, since Bart was half Thawne himself. When that failed, Thawne mixed Bart's DNA with Thawne genetic material to create a speedster clone who he named Thaddeus Thawne, or I guess Thaddeus Thawne. Either way. Come on, really? Alliteration. Whereas Bart grew up in a hyper-accelerated world, Thaddeus' childhood was the exact opposite of this, because, you know, reverse Flash. His development was super slow, which led to the young speedster to become more calculating and methodical, you know, the exact traits a sociopath has. Thaddeus was also taught to hate the Allen family, and Impulse in particular. In addition to this modification, Thaddeus' growth and development was slowed down. This is in contrast to Bart's accelerated development. However, after killing Bart, Wally West had other plans for him. Upon hearing of Bart's death, an enraged Flash, this Flash being Wally West, hunted Inertia down. Though he thought of killing him, Flash decided instead to do something worse. He used his abilities to slow Inertia's movements down to the point where he was totally immobile, essentially a living statue, and then he placed Inertia on display in the Flash Museum, facing statues of Bart Allen as Impulse and Kid Flash. Though he could still think, see, and hear in normal time, Inertia was doomed to spend eternity in a state of near total paralysis, staring at images of Bart, plus being gawked at by everyone coming to the Flash Museum. Oh, that's so brutal.
Number 3, the Golden Child. This version of John Kent comes to us from the alternate Earth of Earth 31. Yep, we're going back to the Dark Knight universe of Frank Miller. In one of his latest Dark Knight universe stories, it was revealed that baby John, who is now a young child here, also born of Superman and Wonder Woman, is actually something completely new when it comes to his power levels. Also, he doesn't have blue hair. No blue hair for John. His sister Lara even suggests that while she agrees with her father about teaching John, that they should soon be prepared to actually learn from him because he's that powerful. At the end of Dark Knight Returns: The Golden Child, we see the true extent of John's powers when he takes on Darkseid, calling him basically an old fart the entire time, as he defeats him pretty easily. Darkseid attempts to use his Omega beams only to have young John swallow that power, absorbing it, and then firing it back with his neutron vision powers. Totally unique powers. John is also able to protect his sister Lara in the fight, making her intangible somehow before both her and he fade away, seemingly transforming both of them into some type of energy? I think that's what happened. That's kind of a weird comic, but yes, it did happen.
Penultimately, in at number 2, the Tornado Twins. The Tornado Twins, Dawn and Dawn Allen, are the children of Iris West and Barry Allen. In one of the possible futures, instead of being heroes though, they turn into supervillains and terrorize the future Central City. According to Professor Zoom, one of the reasons for this change was because of Barry's absence in their lives, which made them misguided and hated their own father, which is weird because in the Flash show, Nora was like obsessed with her dad, but you know, whatever. Dawn, D-O-N, is the father of Bart Allen, and Dawn, D-A-W-N, is the mother of Jenny Ognatz. The duo though ended when Dawn was killed by a Dominator in the Flash number 769, nice, in June of 2021. These are pretty damn powerful characters, and they're at number 2 because you kinda have to count them together, so yeah, 2 people is definitely gonna be more powerful than 1. But this is actually, interestingly enough, supposed to be the twins that Barry had in the original Arrowverse timeline. However, seemingly after Flashpoint, it went from Dawn to Nora, and then it went from Nora to Nora and Bart. This seems to be hinted at since during the 100th episode of The Flash that takes place in season 5, a 2015 Thawne disguised as Harrison Wells assumes that Nora's name is Dawn before being corrected by Barry. And finally, in at number 1, the Forces. Okay, this is certainly going off book here, but the most recent season of The Flash introduced 3 additional forces into the Arrowverse. While recreating the Speed Force with the power of love and positive thinking, Barry and Iris ended up creating 3 new forces along with it. For the first half of the season, these are kind of the big bads of the show. However, for some reason, since they were created along with the new Speed Force, they refer to these forces, including the Speed Force itself, which materializes as Nora Allen, Barry's mother, as their kids. Which is weird enough given that technically Barry has now given birth to his mother in a sense, but by that definition, the forces are also literally the most powerful children of the Flash. They're literal forces of nature. They refer to themselves as a family. The Sage Force calls the Strength Force his sister, and Barry and Iris mom and dad. And technically, without Barry and Iris, they wouldn't have been born. However, since I'm referring to the Arrowverse versions of these forces, plenty of diehard comic fans are going to be mad at me, but that's fine. Barry literally gave birth to the Speed Force, and that's enough for me to claim that they're his most powerful children. Deal with it.
Number 10, Lasher. Lasher is one of the symbiotes that Venom was forced to give birth to by the Life Foundation, who kidnapped the symbiote in order to make Venom make more symbiotes for them. Which is really messed up and explains why the Venom symbiote was so apprehensive when it was pregnant following its experience with the Life Foundation. Each symbiote that it gave birth to with the Life Foundation seemed to have its own special powers, and Lasher's was that they could remote control from a distance a non-sentient host in addition to their main one, using this other host as a form of reconnaissance or like a scout, or simply to just be in 2 places at once, which is pretty cool. I've always wanted to be able to be in multiple places at once. I could get so many things done. Number 9, Dylan. Dylan might not initially seem like a child of Venom, but in a way he is. In fact, it's even been suggested that he might actually be a part of Venom, a piece of the symbiote broken off and molded into something new, or at the very least blended with something new. Venom was a genetic contributor at the time of Dylan's conception, as Anne Wing, his mother, was bonded with the Venom symbiote when she became pregnant with Dylan. Dylan is therefore kind of like Eddie's, Anne's, and Venom's child all together. Dylan initially demonstrated powers which allowed him to control and bend symbiotes to his will, in addition to repelling and resisting them if they wanted to bond to him and he didn't want to. This made him insanely powerful. However, during the King in Black event, he lost this power, which it turns out was attached to the God of Light when his father Eddie Brock destroyed Null, who was attempting to take hold of Dylan's body via the living abyss inside him. As it stands now, Dylan is bonded with the Venom symbiote, which grants him some power, but he is also still very new to this whole thing, meaning he's not particularly skilled or really powerful just yet, which is why I ranked him so low. So low, despite his cool powers he once had that were pretty unique. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more Venom lists, you want to learn about more of the Venom family, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Riot. Riot is also known as being one of the strongest symbiotes to have come from the ones Venom gave birth to while being kept prisoner by the Life Foundation. Riot is often suggested to be the strongest of the litter, at least the physically strongest. He is the most buff of the litter, and he has also been referred to as Mr. Riot, which is a name I honestly love a lot. Because of Riot's inherent super strength, the symbiote generally prefers to use its tendrils to create blunt force weapons, which it can then use in combat against its opponents, or to brute strength force its way through any obstacles in its path. Riot Smash. Mr. Riot Smash. Number 7. Scream. Scream was maybe one of the most powerful of the forcibly birthed Life Foundation offspring of Venom, and I mean powerful just in the overall sense. I say was as well because technically Scream was destroyed by Andy Benton, its latest host. In fact, with Andy it was also at its most powerful, as Andy could also summon and wield Hellfire, which it would be immune to so long as Andy willed that. Unfortunately, in the end the Scream symbiote and Andy ended up in a fight against one another where Andy was forced to defend herself using the very same Hellfire against Scream this time, as opposed to with Scream. This unfortunately kills the symbiote. While it was alive, Scream's powers were similar to the Venom symbiote, which included the added level up of creating wings for itself and using those wings to fly around, and the unique ability of turning its tendrils into hair that they could then manipulate at will, similar to Medusa of the Inhumans. Also, I just like hair powers, I think they're cool. Number 6. Hybrid. Hybrid is the combination of 4 of the Life Foundation symbiotes, all of which were forcibly created offspring of Venom. Hybrid is the entity that exists when Phage, Agony, Lasher, and Riot come together. Being a combined symbiote, Hybrid has all the powers of the individual symbiotes that make it up. Mostly this means it has powers similar to relatives such as Venom and Carnage, but it can also absorb chemicals, produce acid which it can use to attack with, balance the emotions of its host, and can remote control a smaller non-sentient host such as a dog, while still maintaining a bond with its main sentient host at the same time, which obviously that's a power that comes from Lasher. Number 5. Sleeper. Sleeper is the sibling of Dylan and also the 7th symbiote baby of Venom. They are most definitely thought of as Dylan's sibling, as the challenging pregnancy that Venom went through to give birth to Sleeper was not something carried entirely alone. In fact, Eddie even helped directly with this birth, and it was perhaps one of the first pregnancies that was more openly discussed with Eddie, Venom's partner. Eventually at least. And of course in comparison to the other symbiote babies that Venom has had while with Eddie, which I feel like Venom normally didn't even talk about at all, especially with Carnage. Carnage was like, what? And then later Eddie was like, what was that? And it was like, oh, I had a baby, whatever. Sleeper seems to be autonomous and doesn't specifically need a host, unlike some other symbiotes, especially in those early comic book days. I mean, back in the day, Venom was like, if I don't have a host, I'm literally gonna die. In this way, Sleeper is more of a giver, where their host would benefit more from their bond as opposed to the other way around. Sleeper boosts the abilities of its host and provides the additional power of producing various chemicals, some of which can be used to influence the emotional response of enemies, bending them to their will, making them sleepy, making them less aware so Sleeper can like sneak around more easily. Lots of cool stuff. And technically Sleeper can also kind of use those chemicals to like get a little bit of telepathy going on, which is pretty cool. Number 4. Carnage. Definitely one of the most powerful children of Venom out there, and one that we can't have a list without would be Carnage. Carnage is much more ruthless than Venom and much more prone to violence, though this is likely because of the influence of this symbiote's first and main host, and often their chosen host to this day, Cletus Cassidy, notorious serial killer. Carnage has proven to be so powerful that on countless occasions it's required both Spider-Man and Venom, and oftentimes a whole assembly of other superpowered beings to put a stop to them. Even when others think they can somehow control Carnage, the symbiote is proven to be unstoppable and much too much to handle in most cases. Not only that, but even when Carnage turns to the side of good during the events of Axis, they still prove to be super deadly due to how deranged they are. Even when Carnage was like, I'm gonna be a hero, it was a rough time. Cletus Cassidy inside was like, I don't really know how to be a hero. Do we still kill people? Can I still chop this person up? I like them. I want to chop them up. Number 3. Toxin. Toxin isn't specifically a child of Venom, but is more their grandchild, I suppose. Toxin is an offspring of Carnage, but is believed to be even more powerful than both Carnage and Venom combined. Toxin has all the powers of Carnage, but is believed to be stronger. Additionally, it is said that they have a more strong resistance to heat and sonic waves, making them a tougher opponent in most cases. While Toxin definitely has a dark side, they can also be reined in, which is what their first host, Patrick Mulligan, tried to focus on helping them with, mentoring them and trying to help them learn how to become a hero. So despite Toxin coming from Carnage, they're not inherently bad, though they definitely do have a little bit of a Carnage streak running through them. That's what happens when you're Carnage's child, I guess. Number 2. Silence. Silence was actually what came out of Scream's death. Andy Benton bonded with Silence, believing the symbiote at first to be Scream. In reality, Silence was made out of Scream's remains combined with anti-venom, making it much more powerful in theory than Scream. Technically, it is not a direct child of Venom, but it was made out of the remains of Venom's child Scream, and Venom's sibling, in a sense, anti-venom, known for being one of the most powerful symbiotes around. So because of this, I'm gonna count it as a relative slash offspring of sorts, albeit a very weird, very comic book complicated one. I mean, it's kind of like a clone of Venom's child, but then also like kind of part Venom's sibling, so yeah, I don't know. Number 1. Codex. This is technically an alternate future version of Dylan where he becomes a version of the King in Black instead of his dad. Well, at least a version of that on Earth. We meet this version of the character in Venom in the arc prior to the King in Black event. Dylan and Eddie of Earth 616 must team up in order to defeat this alternate god mode version of Dylan, who has become ruler of Earth, creating his own hive mind of symbiotes there that he himself controls. Now, if you thought Null was scary, then you would probably also really love this story featuring Dylan of Earth 1051, known at first as Codex. This version of Dylan would fall under the influence of Null, which was ultimately what turned him dark. Dylan of Earth 616 and his father would help to break the influence Null had over Codex, only for him to fall into a coma and then later be pursued and bonded with by Carnage. Dylan as Carnage in this reality made him even more terrifying than he'd been as Codex. Once more he ruled the Earth, but this time a lot more sadistically, killing and tormenting its inhabitants as he pleased.
And at 10, Ultron 1320. Ultron 1320 comes to us from Earth 14622 and What If Age of Ultron number 1, an Earth where thanks to Wasp dying, Ultron is able to take over the world faster. Ultron was created to be the ultimate AI by Hank Pym to help the Avengers utilize their function better as a team. But with the untimely death of Pym's wife, Pym went on to create a more brutal version of Ultron, which was to replace the Avengers, which makes him technically the son of Hank Pym. So he's viable for this list, okay? But since he's a robot, I'm putting him at the top, don't worry, that's why he's here. But with this, Ultron's sentience began to constantly evolve, and he started the eradication of the human race by taking out such threats as the Avengers and the Defenders while he left Pym alive to just watch everyone suffer. Ultron and his army of Ultron Sentinels then moved to Kola, Russia, so he could bore himself into the planet's core to create the ultimate version of himself, Ultron 1320. Ultron then had his minions batter and beat Pym unconscious until he woke up to find himself turned into Ultron 1321. This version also invaded other worlds, claiming Earth 62412, 23223, and 81223, but before being stopped on Earth 45162. That's a lot of numbers. And at 9, Wiccan. Billy Kaplan, also known by his superhero aliases Asgardian and Wiccan, is a superpowered warlock and the reincarnated son of the Scarlet Witch. He has spent time on numerous superhero teams including the Young Avengers and the New Avengers, and after Wiccan's powers overloaded during a battle with the Sons of the Serpent, the Avengers decided to keep him under observation. Hulkling and the other Young Avengers broke Wiccan out of holding and began to search for the Scarlet Witch. Accompanied by Magneto and Quicksilver, the team traveled to Transia and then to Latveria before discovering a depowered and amnesiac Wanda engaged to Doctor Doom. The rediscovery of Wanda did not go unnoticed though, as the Avengers soon arrived on the scene. Iron Lad teleported the Young Avengers and Wanda into the time stream, and they all went into the past and met a reanimated Jack of Hearts who was about to explode. After that, Wanda remembered who she was, regained her powers, and returned herself, the Young Avengers, and Scott Lang to the present. She then finally confirmed that Billy and Tommy were indeed her reincarnated sons, a story that seemingly will be adapted into the MCU come Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And at 7, Osri T'Challa. Osri is the son of Black Panther and Storm. He was taken to safety by Iron Man along with James Rogers, Torrin, and Henry Pym Jr. to keep them all safe from Ultron. Osri, along with his other siblings, only knew of the Avengers through Tony's tales of their former glory days. And as the son of the Black Panther and Storm, Osri inherited their powers and abilities of the heart-shaped herb from his father, enhanced speed, agility, strength, endurance, healing, and senses. He also inherited the powers and abilities of electrokinesis from his mother. One day while he was playing playing hide and seek with Pym, the Vision arrived at the refuge. Tony tells everyone to wait in James's room until he tells them otherwise. While Asri is fine with waiting, the others aren't, and he fails at convincing them to wait as Tony instructed. When he failed, he and his siblings found a secret entrance to a repair bay under their parents' grave markers. As they searched, they found a room full of Iron Man style robots who resembled each of their parents. While James and Torin lingered, Asri and Pym kept moving and managed to find Tony and the strange robot, which is actually the Vision. And then all the Avenger robots end up waking up, and then they go to fight Ultron as their programming intended, so then there's a whole kerfuffle. It's when they meet Francis Barton. Halfway through into number 5, Groot. Okay, so this is a pretty weird one, I have to admit. But technically speaking, baby Groot is the offspring of Groot. And while yes, he is also just Groot, baby and teen Groot are younger versions of Groot, and that's basically what a child is. Just a younger version of yourself. And while this may have been a asexually produced offspring, so what? This counts in my book. And while you may consider Groot a guardian of the galaxy and not an Avenger, he served as an Avenger for a time in both the comics and in the MCU. So you can back off, boy. Okay? This is a very meta number, I know, but we've included clones on lists like these before. This is close enough, it's fine with me. Kids are basically clones, we've talked about actual clones, so deal with it. And at 4, Sarah Rogers. In an alternate world where the heroes and villains assembled for the Secret Wars never left Battle World, the location of the conflict, the combatants called a truce and settled down to raise families. Sarah Rogers was actually the daughter of Steve Rogers, Captain America, and the X-Men Rogue. In this reality, Rogue was referred to as Carol, indicating that the stolen psyche of the Avenger Carol Danvers was in control of Rogue's body, and given Sarah's existence, had learned to control Rogue's powers enough to conceive a child. Malefactor Vincent Von Doom, the son of Dr. Doom, tried to take over the battle world and return to Earth in order to follow in his father's footsteps and conquer it, because of course. But Sarah led her fellow young heroes to stop Vincent, and along the way grabbed Mjolnir, proving her worthiness to wield the enchanted hammer. So, as a kid, yeah, you're on the list, don't worry. And at 3, Red She-Hulk. A mysterious female version of Red Hulk first appeared when the Red Hulk had gathered a team of mercenaries to hunt down Domino. After this group, called Code Red, not sponsored by Mountain Dew, found Domino, Wolverine slashed his claws across Red Hulk's face, blinding him until his healing factor restored his eyesight. Wolverine was about to deliver the killing blow to Red Hulk when Red She-Hulk appeared, blindsiding him. Red She-Hulk protected Red Hulk long enough in challenging Wolverine. However, just as Red Hulk began to trust Red She-Hulk, she double-crossed him and plunged Elektra's stolen Psy into his neck. Code Red were gathered in the sewers and awaited orders from Samson. Their encounter ended with Red She-Hulk kicking Red Hulk off the Empire State Building. She was then captured by Hank Pym, but her identity was finally revealed when she was stabbed with a sword by Scar and reverted to her human form, revealing her to be Betty, Thaddeus Ross, aka Red Hulk's daughter. And Red She-Hulk has gone toe-to-toe with Hulk in a battle that resulted in both of them dying before being brought back by a wish that Hulk had made earlier. So yeah, pretty powerful. See, I know if someone has tussled with the Hulk to put him higher on this list now, since y'all can't let go. But ultimately, and at number 2, Scar. Scar was the progeny of Hulk and Sierra the Old Strong. After Sierra's death, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, a cocoon containing Scar fell into the Lake of Fire. After a period of time, Scar emerged from this cocoon, appearing to be the age of a human boy. A year later, he appeared to have grown into a young adult, and spent time in the swamps with Old Sam, who attempted to raise, teach, and guide him after he discovered him shortly after the Shadow People burned tattoos into his skin. It took Old Sam months to get him to wear a loincloth and speak, although to be fair, it would have also taken him a few months to get me to wear a loincloth. As the son of the Hulk though, Scar presumably possesses the capacity for vast, if not limitless levels of physical strength among other capabilities, ones which are either fueled by intense anger like his father or via channeling the old power. Once having absorbed 100 trillion tons of kinetic energy from a city to fight the Hulk, he sent Juggernaut flying into space with ease, punching beings miles away, just a lot. And not only that, but thanks to his mother, Scar also possesses the powers of the Shadow People, known as the Old Power, which allows him to connect to and manipulate the planet's energies, basically giving him lava and earthbending skills. Finally, in at number 1, Franklin Richards. Franklin Richards is the son of Reed and Sue Richards of the world-renowned Fantastic Four, who, like I said, were at one point working alongside the Avengers, and who were deemed Avengers for a couple missions, so I'm counting it. Basically, the freaking Celestials have deemed this kid to be beyond Omega level on the scale of mutant-based powers, so Yeah, a future version of Franklin came back to our present and managed to bend Galactus to his will, making Galactus Franklin's herald, which I think speaks for itself. This kid is able to tear the universe apart with a single thought, probably making him the scariest damn toddler on the face of this planet. And that's coming from someone who already thinks toddlers are scary, okay? You should have seen that one kid who tried to stab me with safety scissors. It was certainly an interesting Tuesday afternoon. And in the book History of the Marvel Universe, Franklin Richards is revealed to apparently survive the end of his universe and pass on to the next one, like Galactus did, which is freaking insane.
Number 10. Van-El. Van-El is the imaginary son of Superman that he is made to believe he had in the Superman Annual from 1985, Annual number 11, from the original Superman series. Superman ends up being put in a trance by a plant that starts to kind of attack him as part of a villainous plot. While he's in this trance, he sees what life would be like if he had remained on Krypton and grew up there. He ends up married and with a son named Van-El and a daughter. We don't see Van-El's abilities when it comes to powers, but he is a Kryptonian with both his mom and his dad being from that planet, which means that on Earth, he would probably be at least at Superman levels. Unfortunately, he is just a dream, and Superman heartbreakingly realizes that this world is false and he must wake up. It's actually a pretty sad issue, to be real. This story is like tragic. Number 9. Sir-El. Sir-El isn't a real child of Superman, although at first we actually thought she was one. Sir-El appeared to be the daughter of Lois Lane and Supes from a distant future. She even looked a lot like both of her parents and demonstrated similar powers, but in the end we learned that she was simply created as part of a plot to deliver the Yes virus, which would help Brainiac take over the world. She was created by combining Kryptonian DNA with a human, grafting the DNA sort of over top of her human self. Originally, she was a human known as Mia, and when she learned of her true origin, she destroyed herself in order to save the world. Sir-El was also implanted with all the memories of her parents and being raised by them, so to her, her life as their daughter had felt very real, despite the fact that we learned she was really a fake. Fake daughters, I feel like, should still count, especially if they have memories of being raised. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you are loving my super comfy sweater, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. And if you don't like my comfy sweater, don't tell me, because I don't want to know. It's really comfy, okay guys? I got it for $5 at Value Village, don't judge me. Number 8. Superwoman. Superwoman is Kara Kent, the daughter of Superman and Lois Lane from the alternate reality of Earth 3839. This is the reality we explore in John Byrne's series Superman and Batman Generations. Here, Kara is seen as having the same level of power as Superman, at least initially. Eventually we learn though that Kara really only possesses half the strength of her dad's powers. Oh dear. This means that although she has worked alongside her dad as his sidekick under the name Supergirl for years, she is no match when her evil brother shows up to destroy her and her wedding. Kara was becoming a hero all her own, taking up the mantle of Superwoman and joining forces with her partner in crime fighting and her partner in romance, Bruce Wayne Jr., Batman's son. The two were married, but Kara's brother, manipulated by Lex Luthor to believe that both his father and Kara had actually taken away the powers that he should have been born with, shows up to the wedding and kills Kara shortly thereafter.
And at 7, Malcolm Thawne. Malcolm Thawne is the lost twin brother of Barry Allen. He is Cobalt Blue, one of a number of evil counterparts of the Flash that wields the blue flame. On the stormy night of May 13th, 2 pregnant women came to the office of Fallville, Iowa's Dr. Gilmore. However, the doctor had been drinking that night and he had sent his nurse home. The child of one of the women, Charlie and Thawne, had been strangled by its own umbilical cord, and Gilmore was too intoxicated to save the baby. However, luckily for Gilmore, lightning caused a blackout in the hospital. Gilmore quickly enters the room where another woman, Nora Allen, gave birth, and Gilmore, to cover up the death of Charlene's baby, in the darkness quickly removes the first baby and then closes the baby's mouth so that it doesn't cry, and then he gives that twin to the Thawne family, telling the Allen family that one of their children didn't make it. Yeah, the twin that remained with the Allens was called Barry and grew up to be the Flash, and the other twin, however, was raised by the Thawnes and was named Malcolm. This is also the distant, great times 20 grandfather of Eobard Thawne. Yeah, the Reverse Flash. So Eobard and Barry actually share the same blood. which is freaking nuts. Damn, I did not know that. Although, I probably should have.
Number 6. Carol and Jane Kent. Carol and Jane Kent are the daughters of Superman and Lois from the comic series Superman Secret Identity. We learn of their powers in the final issue, issue number 4, which acts as the conclusion to our tale as Clark moves into his twilight years and his kids mostly take over. Initially, he and Lois weren't sure if they had any powers at all, but many years later they find out that their kids' powers did manifest. It happened to Carol and Jane, their twin daughters, in their teenage years. As adults, they are initially a little less experienced than Clark, but eventually go on to replace him as he leaves more and more of the heroics up to them. By the end of the series, I'd say power level wise they are about at the same place as their dad, or perhaps even a little bit stronger than he was in his prime. Also, Superman Secret Identity is just a really well written story, so if you haven't checked out this miniseries, I highly recommend you go and give it a gander. Also, I can't believe it's from the early 2000s. Like, to me, it feels much more like modern day, like now, not like early 2000s. I mean that as a compliment.
Coming in at number 5, we have Terry McGinnis, aka the next Batman. Originally appearing in the beloved animated series Batman Beyond, Terry was the sarcastic and wisecracking next-generation Batman in a dystopian future Gotham, led by an elderly and retired Bruce Wayne. However, unlike Nightwing, Terry's connection to Bruce wound up being more than just as an adoptive father, as it was eventually revealed that Bruce Wayne is biologically Terry's father, as Terry's actual dad had his genetics replaced by those of Bruce Wayne, essentially making the two heroes related. Even without this connection though, Terry McGinnis stood out as a worthy successor to Batman, developing his own iconic rogues gallery and even being able to defeat villains that the original Batman never could, such as the Joker.
Number 4. Superman. Jonathan Kent is the natural-born son of Lois Lane and Clark Kent, aka Kal-El, Superman, from the main continuity. He was born during the events that caused a reset of the universe when the New 52 basically came about. He and his family were relocated to the New 52 Prime Earth, even though they were originally from New Earth, meaning that for a while we had two Supermans on planet Earth, although one was operating in secret, that one being John's dad. John would become good friends with another super son, Damian Wayne, Batman's semi-natural born son. Well, not really. His whole existence is also an interesting story, but enough of that. He's definitely Batman's biological son at least, so we can count that. Damian and John initially didn't get along but would find common ground and then become the best of friends. Of course, then John went to space and grew up rapidly, and currently in the comics, he has also taken up the mantle of Superman after his father, now that he's back on Earth. John's powers are at a very similar scope and level, but as a human Kryptonian hybrid, he apparently does have the potential to become even more powerful than Clark. Hybrid babies are the best babies in terms of superpowers.
Coming in at number 3, we have 2 for the price of 1 with the Tornado Twins, the potential villainous children of the Flash. Born in the 30th century when Barry Allen had briefly retired there with Iris West, these versions of the twins grew up without a father, as Barry was believed to be dead and never returned to that timeline following the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths. Filling the place of Barry in his absence was unfortunately the Reverse Flash, a villain dead set on ruining Barry's life and creations in any way possible, and turning Barry's twin children into supervillains was right up his evil alley. Having since become members of the Legion of Zoom, a collective of speed-based villains, Dawn and Dawn Allen have the full power of the Speed Force at their disposal, making them incredibly powerful and incredibly dangerous.
Number 2. Hyperman. Hyperman is the son of Superman and Wonder Woman who comes from the reality belonging to the Kingdom Come story and follow-up story, The Kingdom. In that story, little baby John Kent is kidnapped by Gog. He ends up being rescued by two different versions of his parents and his godfather Batman, but ends up with himself in the end, his future self. The hero, Hyperman, who also rules and guards over all of Hyper Time. Hyperman raises the child himself, so raises himself. Continuing the circle and pretty much guaranteeing that John Kent will grow up to become Hyperman, a time-traveling, dimension-hopping hero, because I assume that's how Hyperman was raised, by himself. And then when that one becomes older, he'll have to raise another one. I feel like this is a time loop and it will never end. Number 1. Supergirl. This version of Supergirl is Ariella Kent, the daughter of Linda Danvers' Supergirl and Superman of Earth 1. Yeah, it might sound weird to think that Supergirl and Superman got it on and ended up having a kid together, but remember, this is Linda Danvers' Supergirl. No relation to Supes, and it's also a Superman from another alternate reality because it's Earth 1 Superman, who is therefore even further removed to any kind of relation or affiliation with Linda. Ariella Kent ended up kind of being time or reality displaced due to continuities needing to be altered and set right, but she is still probably out there somewhere in the cosmos, somewhere in the multiverse, although we haven't seen her in the comics for a long time. Ariella was known for her massive power levels, which as a child she had a hard time actually fully comprehending, meaning that wherever she went she generally caused a lot of destruction. Accidentally. This is what happens when you let a super powerful child fly around space and travel through time without any parental supervision. Ariella was also a hybrid baby, being born part Matrix, aka lab-made semi-alien goo, that's basically what the Matrix is, and part Kryptonian. There's gonna be people that are gonna be like, that's not what the Matrix is. I'm like, no, DC Matrix. Look it up, it was a weird thing, but it happened.
Number 10. Death. Death for all of them. We will litter the path to Krakoa with bodies of all those who stand against us, for there is an apocalypse coming. Those are the words of the first horseman, Death. First appearing in Powers of X number 4, Death is immortal, obviously. He was sealed away on Arakko with his other fellow horsemen, which I will expand on a little later. His mother, Genesis, along with multiple other mutants, made the island of Arakko their home, even putting towers up to protect them from the threat of demons, led by Annihilation. That unfortunately didn't last very long. The demons ended up destroying the towers and attacked all of the mutants. Desperate to save Arakko, Death sent the Summoner to Earth. And who is a Summoner, you ask? Well, Number 9. The Summoner. The son of War himself, born hundreds of years ago on that same island of Arakko, he was part of a group of mutant wizards who referred to themselves as the Summoners. So, what could they do? Well, they could summon various creatures of Arakko. Bam, just like that. So while all those mutants were being attacked, the Summoner was sent away to the Immense Dimension. He was sent to find his grandfather and also carried a portion of Arakko with him. His grandfather, being Apocalypse, was needed in order to save Arakko. Not bad at all. Being the grandson of Apocalypse must be nice. My grandparents were cool, but they were never like Immense Dimension cool. They just liked Werther's originals. His powers are pretty interesting. Like I said, he's able to summon and control every dark beast of Arakko. Demon elementals, you name it. I mean, in one instance, he actually held one of Cable's bombs as it went off, and it didn't even faze the guy. Number 8, Famine. Also an OG member of the Four Horsemen, Famine is the son of Apocalypse, first in his name to serve. Similarly to the Summoner, Famine had also ended up in the Immense Dimension. So after his mother died to the hands of immense dark god, Annihilation, Famine and his other siblings were approached shortly after the omniversal Magistrix Saturnine, who then asked both sides of the war to participate in the challenge of the 10 swords for victory, and they agreed. Famine is also centuries old, as he is immortal as well. Number 7, Jack Starsmore. Making his debut in X-Men Apocalypse vs. Dracula issue 1, Jack Starsmore was actually born into a lesser house of the clan Akaba. See, part of the Starsmore bloodline, he wasn't treated with too much respect. The person that gave him the hardest time was Hamilton Slade, his cousin, who I'll talk about in 1 minute. He had a pretty unique mutation that made him stand out from the rest. That being, he can breathe fire. Yeah, he's a pyrokinetic who straight up shoots fire out of his mouth. Guy must kill it at parties. Oh, and he can also absorb fire too with his mouth. So if anything lights on fire in your kitchen, maybe you're cooking something and there's a little plume of dust, Jack Starsmore can just suck it up. He was a child when he was deemed a servant to the council and realized he was a small fish in a very big and very overpowered sea. He had to make up for this lost strength, so he would always go above and beyond his duties to make sure everybody around him is happy and safe. We love him. Number 6, Evan Sabinor. Sounds pretty familiar to in Sabinor. Well, that's because he's his clone. Yeah, making his first appearance in Uncanny X-Force issue 7, Evan was created from the blood of a fallen young Apocalypse after he was killed by Phantom X. So once Warren Worthington became the Horseman of Death, Archangel, he actually was on his way to replace Apocalypse. Phantom X used that small bit of blood and combined it with the world. The world being a scientific facility that's the size of his palm. And he made a clone of Sabinor. Not a bad secret at all. Phantom X finally revealed the secret project and used the clone Evan, a good guy at heart, and he sent him after Archangel. It worked because while they were fighting, Psylocke was able to come in and attack him with the Seed of Life. Number 5, William Rolfson. Making his first appearance in Uncanny X-Force number 13, William Rolfson, better known as Genocide, is the son of Apocalypse and Autumn Rolfson. She was afraid that Apocalypse would see their affair-born son and look at him as a threat. So Autumn decided to hide and raise William by herself. Not a bad plan. During this time, William had grown into his mutant powers, and even had a bad suit to go along with it, and he was only like 15. The suit is designed to trap him and contain his powers. He kind of looks like a skeleton in a Hulkbuster armor. It's kind of neat, like a Mars Attacks alien. He can generate radioactive plasma, which is a nice touch in a fight. Yeah, you want to go? Hope you like plasma, bucko. Bam! It's also as hot as the sun's core, so it's real good. In the Dark Angel saga, when William and his mom are hiding, Archangel found them. At this time, he was Apocalypse's replacement, so he recruited William. Eventually, William's mom caught on what was going on and gave them hell. Archangel reacted by killing her. What a Number 4, Margaret Slade. So as a little girl, she straight up watched Apocalypse himself fight a gang of demons, literally cutting them up. She gave birth to Hamilton Slade, and then after that, her second son, Frederick Slade, who we'll get into a little bit. She's very stern and ruthless, as one would assume, being a descendant of Apocalypse and all. Like, imagine being a child and witnessing Apocalypse being summoned to fight demons. Like, you wouldn't necessarily be the most bubbly of all teenagers after that. I feel like you'd be a bit scarred. She favorited one of her sons a lot more simply because of the fact that he was violent and ruthless as well as her. They both had the bloodlines of Apocalypse. One was just a bit more different, if I can say that. A pretty notable power that Margaret possessed is that she's able to transform the molecules of her hands into a metallic material that she shaped into talons or claws. Kind of like that dude from the Terminator with the metal swords. These are jazz hands. These are gold. I think it's gold, right? These are gold. These are jazz hands. One of the two. Go watch Bring It On. Number 3, Frederick Slade. Born as the second child of Margaret Slade, making his first appearance in X-Men Apocalypse vs. Dracula issue 2, he's in the bloodline of Apocalypse, and he's too cool not to include. Born in the 18th century, his family was part of the main branch of Clan Akaba. So basically, he was a second-born and was physically smaller, so he didn't really get too much attention from his mom. Middle child syndrome, kinda. Pretty mean. She was actually using her time and energy to mold Hamilton Slade. The family was pretty wealthy and spent most of their time in the Alexandria house, aka the cool treehouse meeting place for Clan Akaba. So Frederick, growing up more or less under the radar, that is until Ozymandias came along and saw new potential in him. Ozymandias spent his time watching the members of Clan Akaba as they betray each other and even kill each other just to get closer to Apocalypse. But Frederick Slade, he was a different egg. Ozymandias saw courage, fairness, and compassion inside of Frederick, so he trained him to become the leader of Akaba, and to be donned the title of the Fittest. What a great nickname that would be. Like, oh, Frederick. Oh, you mean Frederick the Fittest? Yeah, I know him. He's my boss. So now he's a descendant of Apocalypse, so he of course has a few tricks up his sleeve. Self-molecular manipulation for starters, which most upper-level members of Clan Akaba possess. Also teleportation. But this one is unique to him. Not only can he teleport himself, but he can also teleport objects or people. It makes a cool blink sound when he teleports too. Gotta love the small details. Number 2, Hamilton Slade. Okay, remember that older brother, Frederick, that I mentioned? Yeah, that's Hamilton Slade. He made his first appearance in X-Men Apocalypse vs. Dracula, issue 1. He's a vampire mutant, so no wonder he got all the attention while Frederick sat on the sidelines. He's also got this cool, like, big clan tattoo right on his chest. Dude's not playing around. We meet him in the Victorian era, born into that same wealthy family. He was born inheriting a strong dose of Apocalypse's blood, so naturally, he was destined to become the leader. It's in his blood, literally. He looked at himself as he would Apocalypse. This guy's a born leader. The members of the clan had to take orders from him if they wanted to or not. He ended up dying at the hands of Dracula, which not a bad way to go out, or not go out. Yeah, he became part of the undead after that and returned as a vampire. As if this guy couldn't get any cooler. So Dracula and his new crew, now including Hamilton Slade, attacked Clan Akaba, killing his own mother in the meantime. And then little bro Frederick Slade came in and killed him. Yeah, he teleported his head away from the rest of his body. Nice touch, super gross. And lastly, number 1, Blink, the great granddaughter of Margaret Slade. also known as Clarice Ferguson, hello Clarice, was a main player in the Age of Apocalypse storyline. Making her first debut in Uncanny X-Men issue 317, she was one of the many mutants that were captured by the Phalanx. She's known to be rather tense and panicky because of her given powers. Anybody caught in the blink wave, which is her teleportation field, would just get shredded. Now I don't mean like get jacked, like they would get shredded apart, their body just poof, gone. She isn't the best at controlling her powers too. And those powers being able to create teleportation warp portals, so she can displace anything and anybody as well. But she also used these portals to throw a weapon back at an enemy. Kinda like in Infinity War during the first New York battle, when Strange and Wong used their portals to throw Ebony Maw's brick darts back at him. It's pretty cool stuff. She joined the mutant nation of Krakoa and battled Nightcrawler, which is a pretty sweet issue.